Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Well, it's finally summer, and wow, is it a hot summer so far? It has been unseasonably hot for a couple of weeks. And if you haven't gathered your spring herbs and wild edibles now, you better go ahead and get a jump on it. I just went out and cut all my mint about halfway back. You know, it's being stressed by the heat. If I can either let it continue like this and it's going to die off at the tops, or cut it, go ahead and harvest what I can, give it a good soak, hope for some rain and some cooler temperatures, and it's probably going to come right back. In fact, anything in the mint family, when you trim it back, always try to cut it where the leaf meets the stem. Go down maybe 2, 3 leaves and clip it right there, or take your fingernail and do it, and usually it will branch right there. And so it'll put out 2 shoots and you'll have twice as much. That's anything in the mint family. And that's probably the vast majority of our culinary herbs, your basils, your well, wait a minute, no, not rosemary, oregano, um, marjoram, savory. I believe those are all mint families. One that I'm growing this year, and actually it is too early to harvest this one in any bulk. So it is a spring or a wild edible. But it really, you can pick a few leaves now, but you're going to get most of your harvest in another month. So we got a little time on this one. But a friend of mine down in the Sandhills of North Carolina near my mother's house, she was well, I guess she still is, a master gardener. And she loved really doing planting weeds, what everybody else considered weeds. She would call wildflowers, and she did beautiful plantings. Well, one of them she planted a lot one season was perilla or shiso or beefsteak plant. It's a Japanese mint that is really unique. The variety I know is purple. Anyway, she planted it. It got out of hand. She tore up most of it. I got some, but then it kept just kind of spreading. And so last time I was down that way, I took my hori hori knife. And if you don't have a hori hori knife, look into this. It's HORI. Best garden tool there is, and the perfect tool for foragers and herbalists. I mean, anything where you want to dig up a root or you want to cut something, it's like a cross between a long knife and a spade. It's sharp on one side edge, so the opposite edge is serrated, and then it's scooped like a spade. I guess it's about a foot long, so you can really use it to dig with, and it fits in a sheath that goes on your belt. It's just fantastic. I don't know what companies make them. I would buy a Japanese one. Honestly, they're fairly cheap, and they'll last like 5 lifetimes. I mean, you could pass this thing on to your great great grandkid. If you go to like Lowe's Hardware or something, and you buy an American version, I think Fisker's made one for a while. I've had Fisker spades that broke the first time I used them. I got a pair of Fisker's hedge clippers. They're decent, so they don't always make bad tools. In fact, I'm sure some of their tools are quite good. I've had folding saws that they made, but their spades, they just handle broke right off, like each time I tried to use one. I would definitely go with the traditional Japanese hori hori knife. It's just a piece of steel with, a wooden handle, just a two-piece wooden handle riveted on. It's like super simple, and because of that, it's going to last forever. So anyway, I was out and I noticed some of that perilla, that shiso that she had planted. She's moved on to an assisted living village. She's in her 90s. But the people that bought her house have kept some of her plants, which is nice. I don't think they really value what they have. But anyway, some of that perilla had gotten out of her yard and was starting to spread in the neighbor's yard. So I just took my hori hori knife, dug some up, popped it in a couple flower pots, and it's doing great. I mean, it's loving this heat. I mean, it's a Southern Asian heat-loving member of the mint family, and the variety she was growing was purple. It does come in a green. We've talked about this before. Really, really neat plant. Really, really delicious. In fact, I already did a whole show on, we won't talk about it again. I put it under beefsteak as opposed to perilla or shiso. That's what it's more commonly known as in America for some reason. I don't know. It doesn't taste anything like beef. It tastes sort of like cinnamon and anise. It's just one of the most unique members of the mint family. But anyway, that's just thriving in the heat. My gourd plants are growing like 3 inches a day. I mean, they're thriving in the heat. But it's time for those cooler weather. Like today, we're going to talk about dandelions. You should be harvesting your dandelion greens now. Okay, they're depending on where you live, they could get bitter as the temperature gets hotter. I live on a northwest slope in the mountains of North Carolina. I have wonderful dandelion leaves, greens all year. But, dandelions, plantain is going to start getting tough if you don't go ahead. We'll try to talk about plantain today. Let me just go ahead and jump into it. It's fairly brief entries on most of the plants today, so I'm going to do 2 of the wild edibles and 2 of the medicinal plants. As usual, most of the wild edibles have medicinal uses, and most of the medicinal plants are also wild edibles. Especially today, but we'll start with the cow parsnip. I don't really know of really any medicinal use of this one, but it is a really good wild edible. Now, here's the thing. Cow parsnip is in the same family as wild carrot, which means it's also in the same family as poison hemlock. You're going to want to identify this plant before you go out and try to harvest it. Don't pick it and say, oh, I think this might be cow parsnip, and take a bite of it. You may die. Okay, cow parsnip, like I said, same family as poison hemlock, same family as water hemlock, or often called water parsnip. These are very, very deadly plants, but don't worry about it too much. It's also the same family as carrot and dill and fennel and so many of the plants we love to eat and to use as spices and medicinal herbs. The nice thing about cow parsnip is, except for its early stages, which if you live, anywhere in the northern hemisphere, it's past the early spring stage now. It's a big one. Okay, it will grow up 10 feet tall. This is, as far as I know, the largest member of the Apiaceae family. It looks like a giant carrot plant. Okay, it will grow as taller than your roof, and it has the big, like Queen Anne's lace, baby's breath, umbelliferous white flowers that we know from carrots and dill and all that, right? Parsley is in this family. This is the Apiaceae family. Don't let it freak you out that 2 of the most poisonous plants on earth are also in this family. The same could be said of the nightshade family, the potato and tomato and eggplant family. They're edible members, and they're those that we need to steer clear of. But this one, it's super easy. The only warning I know about this, some people are very allergic to it, and the plant can actually cause dermatitis if you do have that allergy. So you might want to harvest it with gloves. It's also can be very rough and just abrasive on the skin. This is the biggest vegetable I actually know of. So, a couple of plants can provide a lot of food. When it's small, Yeah, it could definitely look like water parsnip. So you're going to want to identify it before you go out. But just remember, there's no water parsnip growing 10 feet tall. This is what big sucker. I mean, seriously. And depending on where you live, it is very abundant. It grows commonly in North Carolina. And if people use it for food instead of trying to eradicate it, man, it could feed a family. I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's huge. The stalk and the leaf stems can be peeled and cooked as a vegetable. As a vegetable, you boil them in a couple of changes of water until tender and not too bitter. Okay, this is one that will have some toughness and some bitterness. Same family as celery. It's like giant stalks of celery. Okay, so you're going to want to peel it. You're going to want to do a couple of changes of water, and the roots can be cooked like parsnips. So again, I mean, the roots are huge. And the seeds are said to make a nice spice. I haven't tried them yet. They're probably very much like fennel seed or celery seed or caraway or anything in this family. Definitely, man. I see these things in old pastures, and I mean, it's just that's food that I mean, it's just going to waste out there. And people will spray it with Roundup trying to get rid of it. They think of it as a nuisance. Again, this is ignorance. Ignorance is why we call things weeds. But much like comfrey we discussed last week, I would be hard pressed to come up with a bad way to cook it or a very specific way to cook it. I mean, it's once it's been boiled and it's tender and it's pretty mild, and you could use it in casseroles, you could use it in soups. As a cooked vegetable, it's really an excellent side dish for most any meat. A lot like fennel, a lot like celery. I suppose I would say that it's not delicate though. Again, like comfrey, it's more kind of tough and hearty, but it's not too tough if you peel off any bits that feel tough. I mean, it's got the tender parts and it's got a more of a woodier part. Cow parsnip, not one you're going to toss into a salad. This is not a spinach or anything. This is a cooked vegetable. You're going to go with soups, casseroles, and there's a recipe I've been using for a long time. I don't know where it came from. I'm sure it's not. I didn't come up with this one. I know I got it out of a book somewhere, sometime back. That's all I can tell you. Somewhere in my childhood, I found this recipe for cow parsnip, and I just incorporated it in my cooking. I'm giving it to you from memory, and I wish I knew who to credit for this one. But yeah, this one I'm sure I did not come up with on my own. But take like 2 to 3 pounds of cow parsnip trimmed. I mean, that's a goodly amount of vegetation. We're going to make a roux. We're going to use about 2 tablespoons each of flour and butter, about a cup or so of whole milk, a cup of chicken stock or broth or other stock. I mean, I would use a meat-based or a fish-based. If you want to do a vegetable broth, that's your problem, not mine. I really like to make stocks and broths from the carcass of a chicken or beef bones or fish frames. I mean, that's my shrimp shells. I mean, that's sort of the basis of my cooking. Herbs of your choice, about a fourth cup of mayonnaise, shredded chicken or whatever other critter you want to use. Like I said last week, rabbit, very interchangeable for chicken. You could use, gosh, anything, quail, squirrels. I mean, if you wanted to use beef or fish, it's not going to bother me. Whatever you like. Crawfish would be very nice. Shrimp would be very nice. Yeah, anything in this. Some chopped nuts. Any nut you like. I'm going to use pecans because that's what we have mostly in North Carolina. We got tons of pecans. We got tons of hickory nuts. Sometimes you find a wild black walnut tree. Um, you know, Hickory and walnut are like ridiculously difficult nuts to pick. You break the shell and you just spend hours trying to get a little bit of nut meat out. Pecan's going to be my go-to. If Now you can grow hazelnuts and filberts wonderfully in my environment, and that actually is probably my favorite nut. But I don't have any growing on the property right now. Used to, will soon, God willing. So any veggies you like, just chopped up, about bite size, quick blanch in salted water, or Saute, doesn't bother me. Breadcrumbs, and that's optional. You can always substitute. I like to take breadcrumbs, mix them with a little Parmesan cheese. You can mix breadcrumbs with butter. You could substitute the chopped nuts there. You just don't want them to burn. But yeah, I like breadcrumbs. Why not? So blanch your cow parsnips. Okay, couple changes of water. Make sure they're tender. They're not bitter. All right. Make a roux, cooking the flour and butter until it tastes and smells cooked. There's no longer the smell of raw flour, and it gets that kind of nutty cooked flour smell. You're ready. All right. Stir in your broth and milk. You've made a bechamel or a gravy. Yeah, it's that simple. Literally, this is a casserole. This is like every one of my casserole bases. Butter and flour, stir in your broth and milk. Combine the meat and veggies in a casserole dish. Cover with sauce. Mix in some mayo. Top with grated cheese and nuts and breadcrumbs if you like. Bake until brown and bubbly. If you do use nuts, put them under the cheese so they don't burn, because nuts burn very fast. This is an incredibly good casserole. You could substitute anything for those cow parsnips. I mean, asparagus, celery, fennel, pretty much any wild green or poke shoots would be. I mean, but yeah, I like. To me, this is sort of like a cream of celery type of casserole, which I love with chicken and nuts. I mean, that's like one of my favorite things. But we're substituting in cow parsnip. So it's going to have a little bit different flavor, a little more wild flavor, and I like it a lot. This is one of those things where I got the big old Corningware casserole dishes from the 1950s, 1960s that my grandmother had, and I'm going to make 10 pounds of this a minimum at a time, and I'm going to eat on it for a week or two, and I'm going to share it with friends and family and neighbors, and everybody's just going to go crazy over it, because the truth is everybody loves casserole, but casserole has gotten such a bad reputation due to canned soup. Everybody loves a real casserole made with a roux and real chicken stock or broth and real butter and mayo if you add it, or sour cream or whatever you want to put in there. A lot of people really hate casseroles made from canned soup, myself included, but most of those people think that's the only way a casserole is. Casseroles come from French cooking going back to the Middle Ages. They definitely predate Campbell's soup. Okay, the canned soups that were so popular in the 50s and 60s our grandmothers used have just really turned people off from casserole. And I'm telling you, I can make an oyster casserole. I can make a cream of mushroom based casserole with beef or chicken, any kind of. I mean, I can put anything on casserole, as they say in French, and it's going to be phenomenal. Honestly, I mean, it's got a rich, usually. I mean, it depends. There are various types of casserole. You can make casseroles with rice, and you can make, that's really good too, by the way, rice-based casseroles. But I like that, creamy bechamel, maybe enriched with a little mayonnaise, maybe a little sour cream, plenty of butter, and it's just really satisfying baked dish. I mean, most people, they're going to think tuna casserole, right? Tuna casserole is basically just a tuna pot pie without a shell. Well, go for it. Use a bechamel instead of like Campbell's cream of mushroom soup. I don't mean to denigrate Campbell's. I mean any canned cream of mushroom soup. Combine your flour and butter. Use some milk and chicken broth. Put in your mushrooms. You want to saute your mushrooms and onions. Stir them in. Use that as your base for your casserole instead of, and of course, if this is tuna, I was just thinking chicken for some reason. Tuna casserole. Feel free to use either a vegetable stock or a fish stock if you don't want to use chicken, or just go with the milk. You're not going to notice the difference, really. Mix in your tuna and your mixed vegetables and bake it up with some breadcrumbs on top. It's going to be phenomenal. Macaroni and cheese is a type of casserole. That's also should be bechamel based and not made from a package. There's so many just wonderful casseroles, and they really are like everybody's favorite food. But we've been jaded by fake stuff, frozen foods, and stuff from a can. A like legit from scratch green bean casserole is one of my favorite things. That's actually one that started. Campbell's, I think it was, had a contest. How many Campbell's products can you use, right? And someone said, well, I can use cream of mushroom soup, and I can use canned Campbell's green beans, and I can use French fried onions, and they made a green bean casserole. Try making it from scratch. It's going to blow your mind. Um, Cream of spinach. Speaking of Thanksgiving, try making cream of spinach. That's essentially a casserole. It's a bechamel with chopped spinach, baked usually in the oven, nice and brown and bubbly on top. I like to put cheddar cheese over it. You could do the same thing with broccoli. Casseroles are phenomenal, and they're cheap, easy. I mean, they're really cheap. You can feed a whole family on $1 or two if you make casseroles. And if you actually make them from scratch, they're some of the best food you can have. Hey y'all, a few weeks ago, a company reached out to me and they wanted me to try a product. It's called Magic Mind. Now, you know me. I'm very knowledgeable about herbs, and I don't just take something because of marketing or because someone recommended it. So I really did my research first, looked into what the ingredients were in the product and about the company, and I said, yeah, I'll give it a shot and see how it works. Well, when the package arrived, I had a very bad case of viral bronchitis. I'd actually been sick for about 2 weeks and I was in really bad shape. So I just sat it on the counter. I thought, I'm not going to take this while I'm sick. I want to give it a fair shot. So, about a week ago, I was starting to feel a little better, and I looked at the product again and remembered it had a lot of really good herbs in it that support the immune system. So I took it for about a week, and I think it actually helped a lot. A lot of the herbs in it, really all but one, we've discussed before on the podcast. The only one I wasn't familiar with was citicoline, and it's pretty good. It's good for neurohealth, cognitive function. It's somewhat of an adaptogen, I think, and the others, I've used, and we've talked about them many times. Bacopa is a relaxing herb. It's good it helps with pain. It's good for mental clarity. Lion's mane, I did a whole show on that. My grandfather died of ALS Lou Gehrig's. Lion's mane has a neuroprotective and nerve protective property, as well as being good for the immune system. Turmeric, which is antiviral. Vitamin C, which supports the immune system. Cordyceps, another great mushroom that's an adaptogen. It's very energizing. It boosts the immune system. Good for endurance and both physically and mentally. Vitamin B complex, which is just essential for health and mental clarity and function. Vitamin D3, again, good for the immune system. And ashwagandha. Y'all know I love ashwagandha. I mean, it's an adaptogen. It helps the immune system. It's relaxing. It actually increases testosterone in men. I take it daily regardless. Rhodiola, which is another really powerful adaptogen, very energizing, very good for the immune system. And matcha, which you probably know is sort of a green tea, a very caffeine-rich green tea. There are a few other things in there. I don't have the little card they sent me in front of me. It actually got thrown away accidentally. You know how that goes. But I recovered very quickly from this virus, and it was a very stressful time. Actually, my little dog, he's 17 years old. You've seen him if you know the show, and you've seen a picture of me, my little border collie. He's always with me. He had a stroke, so had a lot of nights where I was sitting up with him, taking care of him. Really sick, really worn down myself, and I had a book that was due. It was due for publication. I actually edited, proofread, and did the rewrites for over 200 pages in 3 days. I did 3 articles for a magazine, my regular weekly article, my 3 minimum, regular weekly podcasts. Sometimes I do 4 or 5. I really think Magic Mind helped me with mental clarity. I believe it definitely helped me recover from the virus. I was really sick, and I started taking this, and within 2-3 days, I started feeling a lot better. And, I'm back to riding my bike. I took about a 4-mile bike ride today by the lake. I'm carving wood. I'm gardening. I'm doing all the physical stuff that I do. But I also I needed a lot of mental clarity, and I think it helped with that. Now, I'm also a coffee drinker. I take the shot of Magic Mind. It's a liquid product, and in the morning, and then I have my coffee. What was interesting is even with the extra caffeine, it didn't make me jittery at all. I think the ashwagandha and the bacopa really help kind of, it calms as it invigorates. So I think it's a good product. It's actually endorsed by a lot of big name folks. I mean, like Dr. Andrew Weil, Dr. Dan Engel, a lot of people you would know. It's a legit company, and I talked with the people a lot before I even agreed to try the product, and they were kind, they were intelligent, they were informed. I like this product a lot. I hope to keep taking it, especially since I have a family history of ALS, and lion's mane mushroom is a big priority for me. Uh, there will be a link in the show notes that if you click on it, you'll get a nice discount on the product. It's not a cheap product. It's really not. It's a high quality and worth what you pay for, but you'll get a really deep discount that will make it very well worth your while to click the link that they sent me. If you want to learn more about it, go to magicmind.com. I think you're going to really enjoy this. I would never ever recommend a product that I hadn't tried myself and found to be worthwhile, and I found this to be very worthwhile. In fact, my mother's been having some issues with high blood pressure and different things. And she hasn't been able to drink coffee. And I said, "Here, try this Magic Mind." And she took a dose of it, and she said, "Oh, wow, this is better than coffee, and I don't feel jittery, and it didn't affect my blood pressure." So that's been our experience. If you try the product, please tell me your experience. I think it's pretty darn good. Really, I do. And again, it's called Magic Mind. Click the link or go to their website, magicmind.com. But again, if you click the link, they're allowing my listeners to get a really serious discount on the product that's going to make it well worth the little effort of clicking a link. So y'all check it out, and I hope you enjoy it. Let's go ahead and we'll get into dandelions because if you haven't harvested your dandelions this week, as hot as it is, if you live anywhere other than where I live, or similar climate, cool and damp, you're probably gonna have a couple of months off from harvesting dandelions while they get tough and bitter, and you'll harvest them again in the fall. So dandelions, of course, are like the ubiquitous weed. They're like the poster child for for weeds that modern lawn owners attempt to eradicate. That has literally spawned a multi-billion-dollar industry of Roundup and other chemicals that Scott's everything and all that you put on lawns. But our ancestors brought dandelions to the New World to be used as food and medicine. I've written extensively on the medicinal value of dandelions. I've done whole shows on it. Piece of cake, just go back through the archives. Dandelions are one. If I have my top 10 medicinal herbs, dandelion's definitely going to be in it. Now, where I live, I can have dandelions all year, which is very nice. Every part of the dandelion is edible. The roots are good as a medicinal tea, very good for the liver especially. People say if it's roasted, it can be a coffee substitute. You know my opinion on that. There is no coffee substitute. You either have coffee or something that pretending to be coffee that I'm not going to drink. The stems are bitter and can be used to stimulate digestion. You can make a nice digestive bitters out of the stems. Unopened flower buds can be pickled as a caper substitute. It's one of the best ways to do it. You can do it as a fermented pickle or in vinegar. Wonderful substitute for capers. The open flowers, mature flowers, make a nice syrup or wine. Very popular. Dandelion wine is still one of the most popular wild wines. And the syrup is just like honey. You won't believe it until you try it. The greens really are my favorite. And you can use them raw any way you do a salad green. And usually they're no more bitter than radicchio or endive. And depending on the time of year, they may be much more mild than that. If they get a little mature, if they're on a sunny slope, if they get hot, they may be bitter, too bitter for some people's taste, and they may get a little tough. So, like this time of year when they're starting, they've flowered, right, and they're starting to get tough and bitter. Now's the time. Go ahead and harvest all you can get. They'll grow back. Don't worry about it. Dandelion's a perennial plant. It's going to come back every year. Cut it down to the ground. It's coming right back. Okay, it's got a nice thick tap root, and that's why it's so hard to get out of lawns. So go ahead and cut them. And let's do just a wilted salad. This is the salad my great grandmother made, and I mean it's really absolutely fantastic. You can do a wilted salad of just about any wild grain. You could do this with wild mustard. You could do this with chicory. You could do this with wild lettuce. You could do this with just about any green that we might use. Certainly plantain. Any of them. Wilted salad is really the best way that I know of making dandelion greens more palatable to the modern palate, to the modern taste, if you will. Um, Unless you're used to eating the raw bitter greens, if you've only grown up on like iceberg lettuce and sweet salad dressings and such, yeah, it's gonna, mature dandelion greens will taste bitter to you. But we can totally work with that. This is super simple. And I know the vegans and vegetarians are going to freak out. Look, y'all, if you don't like me using bacon and eggs and cheese, just substitute it and keep your mouth shut. I really don't care about your vegan opinions. I don't think veganism is either moral or healthy. I've done a whole show on that. The vegan diet is bad for the environment. It kills more critters than the carnivore diet or the omnivore diet, especially, which is what I do. And I'm really tired of your browbeating and your superior attitude. God made animals for man to eat. Okay? Man is to steward the earth and take care of the animals, and in return, we get to eat the animals. That's my opinion. You don't like it, keep it to yourself. Don't listen to my show. I don't care. I get some nasty emails from vegans sometimes. And basically, I just don't reply because the vegetarian diet to some extent, but the vegan diet is really bad for brain health. The brain is mostly made up of cholesterol. So basically, I see these people as mentally ill. Yeah, I'm going to tell you, vegans, vegetarians are mostly mentally ill, overly emotional, illogical, weak, sickly, pathetic little people. I'm sorry. I mean, if your diet is what makes you a good person, um, and you're not a good enough person on your own, separate from your diet, you really don't have a lot to hang your hat on. And as your brain shrinks due to the vegan diet, well, I guess your skull won't. You'll still have the same amount to hang your hat on, but there'll be less rattling around in there. And they tend to be very emotional and sometimes violent. Some of the most violent people I've ever met have been vegans. So anyway, there's my politically incorrect statement for the day. Um, Meatless diets cause people to be weak, sickly, depressed, over-emotional, irrational, and generally rather miserable people to be around. And I say that as a former vegetarian. I was a vegetarian for about 5 years of my teens, and it destroyed my health. As a naturally lean and fit 210 pound to 220-pound guy, I need a lot of protein and I need a lot of meat and animal fats to be at my peak performance. So do you, by the way. And I'm sorry, women. A lot of the vegans and vegetarians are female. You get on this diet and wow, you lose a lot of weight, and ooh, you think you're doing so great, right? Um, because you're starving your body of animal fats and proteins, not only will you begin to suffer health effects, you'll begin to become more emotional. The PMS, premenstrual syndrome, the period issues will become more pronounced. You will have more anxiety and depression. But unfortunately, your brain, because it's atrophying, will will delude you into thinking that's not the case, will delude you into thinking that your vegetarian diet or vegan diet is making you healthier because your brain is literally being starved of the nutrients it needs to work properly. But here's one thing you might want to think. You think you're losing weight and you're fit and all this. Notice the fine lines around your mouth and your eyes. As you're starving your body and your skin of animal fats and proteins, you're going to begin prematurely aging. And unfortunately, your breasts are going to shrivel up like prunes. Yeah, that's right. Your body's going to start feeding on its own fat, and your skin is not going to have the collagen and all the nutrients it needs from animals. And you may think you're looking good when you're about 20, 25, and by the time you're about 35 and 40, your body's going to look like you're about 80. Yeah, I mean, lack of muscle tone, saggy butt, shriveled breasts, wrinkles around your mouth and eyes, and dull skin tone, sunken ribs, um, you know. So if you think the vegan diet is going to be, a diet that's going to make you look attractive, uh, basically, unless you find a vegan man who's about as brain dead as you are, um, you're not going to have a very active dating life after age 40. Let's just put it that way. So, yeah, I'm sure I've just totally angered like half my audience, but it's true. I grew up in a college town around hippies. I have been around vegetarians and vegans my entire life, and I can show you a meat eating, barbecue loving, steak loving, pork rind eating girl from Georgia who's 40 years old, and show you a vegan hippie from Boone or Asheville who's 40 years old, and basically that girl from Georgia is going to look about 20 years younger. Bright eyes, not the dark circles around the eyes, good skin tone, rosy cheeks, firm, muscular, um, a little fat where you want a little fat, you know, a lot of energy and spunk and spitfire, and there's just no comparison. I'm sorry, there's no comparison. And it's even worse for men. The vegan diet is essentially suicide for a man. Just forget about having any testosterone, because testosterone is made from cholesterol. Unless you're eating animal fats, your brain and your testicles are shot. Forget it. You're not fathering a child if you're a vegan over the age of 40. I mean, it may happen, but you may as well microwave your testicles. You're going to have about that much motility and productivity. So, it, not it's not the diet God intended. And I've done a whole show on why it's bad for the environment and actually kills more animals than the omnivore or carnivore or any kind of meat eating, even the average American just eating fast food diet. The vegan diet actually kills more animals, is worse for the environment, and is really not good. So anyway, let's get into our wilted salad. So I'm going to start with bacon, and we're going to fry some bacon in a pan until it renders enough fat to cook your greens. That's it. When the bacon's done enough for your taste, pull it out. You know how I like my bacon? Wiggly. I don't like my bacon crispy. I know, it's crazy. I go into a restaurant, and if I'm getting like, bacon and eggs, I'll say, I want my bacon wiggly. They never bring it to me because they don't think I want my bacon that rare. I actually do. But anyway, we're going to render out some fat. Add some butter or olive oil if you need some more fat. Toss in your dandelion greens and some green onions or ramps, whatever alliums you like. Toss in a dash of salt and pepper. I would also add some cayenne or crushed red pepper. That's for my taste. Stir the greens in hot fat until they're cooked and tender enough for your taste and tooth. Plate and dress either with vinegar in which hot peppers have been pickled, or a vinaigrette if you like. Just make a vinaigrette with, vinegar, olive oil, a little mustard, whatever herbs you like. Really good. But I'm just going to use hot pepper vinegar. Top with the sliced bacon, a boiled egg, some anchovies or sardines, smoked sardines especially if you got them, grated cheese or whatever you like. I mean, that's my idea of a dandelion salad. And I'm going to put plenty of like grated feta or parmesan over top. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. Dandelion wine, super easy to make, absolutely delicious. I call it sunshine in a bottle. Actually, a lot of people call that. I can't take credit for that. But this is a small batch. Let's say you got about a half gallon of dandelion flowers. If you only had a quart, cut the recipe in half. If you have a gallon, double it. Whatever. Pick your flowers before noon on a dry day. So pick off all the stem and the white part that comes to the flower. We really only want the yellow here. Um, this is like the tedious part, just getting all the white off because it's bitter. It's good to wash them in cold water. Just soak them in a deep bowl of clean water. You can do a sink or a bowl. It really doesn't matter. Just get the bugs and little bits of dirt off. Bring about a gallon of water to a boil in a large pot. Dump your clean flowers into the water. Cover and simmer about a half hour. Add some citrus. You're going to want to balance it with some acidity. So I'm going to use some lemons, oranges, anything would be good. Limes, whatever. I usually add the juice and zest, but if you use the zest, be careful not to add any pith. The pith is the bitter part. It's the white part of the peel. Let it simmer along with the dandelion flowers. Like I said, it's about a half hour. It's going to give you a nice acidity, but it'll also give you a brighter yellow color. The zest especially will give you that lemony yellow or green if you use limes, or orange if you use oranges, whatever. You can definitely get creative with additions. You could add rose petals. Again, remove all the white parts of the petals. Violets. You could add raspberries, strawberries, peaches, pears, fresh grapes. I mean, it really doesn't matter. If you use aromatic herbs, wait until after they boiled and add them at the end and just let them steep in there with hot. You don't want to boil off the volatile oils that make them aromatic. Once the liquid is cooled to room temperature, strain out all the solids. Stir in about 2 to 4 pounds of sugar. More sugar makes the wine sweeter and higher in alcohol. Don't use too much sugar though, because it can exhaust the yeast and you just end with something really sweet. At this point, you could boil it down in that syrup. That's the honey-like syrup. Or, again, it's cool to room temperature after the sugar's all dissolved in there. Put yeast in there. You can get a nice like Lavalin yeast from a wine brewing or beer brewing company. You can use bread yeast. It really doesn't matter. We're going to put this in a jug that we can cap so air can't get in, but carbon dioxide can get out. So just like I told you when you're making sauerkraut, you can get a fermentation lock, you can cover it with a balloon, whatever. You just want to let carbon dioxide out without letting air in. It's going to finish fermenting probably within 30 days. It's going to just bubble and bubble and bubble for about 30 days, and it's going to slow down. After a month or two, all the sediment of the yeast should settle to the bottom. It should be nice and clear, and you can drink it then. It's going to be nice. It's going to be sweet. If you transfer it, you rack it off the old yeast, which just means pour off the wine into new bottles, leaving the sediment behind. You can cap them, let them age 6 months to a year, and you're going to have fine wine. I mean, really very nice, good wine that would go with any meal or just be sunshine in a bottle in the wintertime. You're going to love it. All right, now let's get into our medicinal herbs. And we're going to start with mouse ear hawkweed. Now, this is Pilosella officinarum. Pilosella officinarum, mouse ear hawkweed, is little used in modern herbal medicine. But, you see that second name, officinarum. That means it was once an important medicinal herb. It was included in the officina, the herbal apothecaries, in the monastic hospitals. Perhaps the reason that it fell out of favor is that dozens of plants have been known as hawkweed. In the 1600s, some of the British herbalists, I can't even tell you how many plants they called hawkweed. We have several commonly named plants called hawkweed right here in America that are often included in our weeds. It can be very different plants. So I want to specify we're talking about Pilosella officinarum, or mouse ear hawkweed. Miss Grieve in the 1930s said, none of the hawkweeds are now much used in herbal treatment, though in many parts of Europe they were formerly employed as a constant medicine in diseases of the lungs, asthma, and incipient consumption, that's tuberculosis. But the small mouse ear hawkweed, known commonly as mouse ear, is still collected and used by herbalists for its medicinal properties. It is very common on sunny banks and walls and in dry pastures. And, she goes on about its appearance. This is one of those herbs that was brought to America to be used as medicine, and we now consider it a weed. She said it has sudorific, tonic, and expectorant properties, and is considered especially a good remedy for whooping cough. And she said it's actually been regarded as specific for whooping cough, and that would be by physicians. and all affectations of the lungs or affections of the lungs. That would be, before pharmaceutical medicine, before chemical medicine, the mouse ear hawkweed would have been prescribed by your doctor and given to you by your pharmacist to be used, probably as a tea, for whooping cough. She says the infusion of the whole herb, that's again a tea, is made by pouring a pint of boiling water over 1 ounce of the dried herb. This is well sweetened with honey and taken in wine glass full doses. A fluid extract is also prepared, just basically boiled down, and used as an excellent astringent for hemorrhage, internal and external. A strong decoction being used for hemorrhoids, and the leaves boiled in milk are a good external application for the same purpose. She goes back and quotes some early Anglo-Saxon herbalists, and mouse ear hawkweed was used along with shepherd's purse for all internal bleeding. They said for ruptures especially, but this is life-saving medicine for like excessive menstrual bleeding. These herbs, especially shepherd's purse, mouse ear hawkweed, sage taken as a cold tea, yarrow taken as a cold tea, can really help in emergency cases where basically a woman can bleed to death, and often gets very serious before it's diagnosed and treated properly. Culpeper, let's see. She quotes Culpeper, and he said that the juice taken in wine or the decoction drunk cures the jaundice, even of a long continuance, drunk in the thereof morning and evening, and abstain from other drink for 2 or 3 hours after. So a cup of the tea morning and evening, and don't drink anything else for an hour or two after, was especially good for jaundice, liver condition essentially. It is a special remedy for the stone and tormenting pains thereof. So we're talking kidney and bladder stones, griping pains of the bowels, decoction with succory and century. That's chicory and centaury, which is I think in the thistle family. Is that right, or is it? Well, it doesn't matter. You can look it up. It's Centaury. It may actually be in the geranium family. Anyway, I can't remember. It is effectual in dropsy and diseases of the spleen. It stayeth fluxes of blood at the mouth or the nose, and inward bleeding. Also a singularly good wound herb for wounds both inward and outward. In other words, it could be applied as a poultice to stop bleeding, or used as a tea to stop bleeding internally. A syrup made of the juice and sugar is, it was common in the apothecaries, he said. Those were the pharmacies of old. And was good for those, given to those that have cough, ruptures, and burstings. The green herb bruised and bound to any cut or wound doth quickly close just the lips thereof. In other words, quickly closes the wound. And powder the dry herb would stay cankers of the mouth and other parts, cankers and sores, in other words. Distilled water of the plant applicable for diseases of any of the aforesaid, and applied with cloths wet, good poultice for wounds and all that. John Parkinson said that if the mouse ear be given to any horse, it will cause that it shall not be hurt by the smith that shoe him. What does that mean? Well, Parkinson was actually one of the greatest herbalists of all time. And this is an interesting, kind of odd little entry. He was saying that if the mouse ear hawkweed was fed to horses, that when the, I guess it would be a farrier, he said a smith, would put horseshoes on him, it would stop any bleeding from a nail that went too far into the hoof. Skilled farrier, that should never happen, but it can happen. And obviously very painful for the horse, and it can be a wound that's very hard to heal, but it would stop that bleeding. And he also said, but it was bad for sheep. So I don't know. He said it would make the sheep grow sick and lean, and even cause death. So I don't know as far as that. But up to modern use, medicinal use of mouse ear hawkweed. Mouse ear hawkweed relaxes the muscles of the bronchial tubes, stimulates the cough reflex, and reduces the production of catarrh. What does that mean? Catarrh is congestion. It's going to relax the bronchioles. It's an expectorant. It helps get the mucus out. This combination of actions makes the herb effective against all manner of respiratory problems, including asthma, wheeziness, whooping cough, bronchitis, and other congested and chronic coughs. The herb is mildly astringent, cholagogue, diaphoretic, strongly diuretic, expectorant, and tonic. Fresh plant is antibiotic. The plant has been regarded as specific for whooping cough and is also used in treating other problems of the respiratory system such as asthma, bronchitis, and influenza. The herb is also taken in the treatment of enteritis, influenza, cystitis, pilitis, and is occasionally used externally in the treatment of small wounds and cuts. The plant is harvested in May and June whilst in flower and can be used fresh or dried. And it actually shows up in the physician's desk reference for herbal medicine. So, even though we don't use hawkweed a whole lot anymore in modern herbal medicine, or most people don't, I like the herb, it was so specifically indicated for whooping cough and such that it's still known in modern medicine. And the physician's desk reference says the plant has shown to have diuretic, spasmolytic, and other diaphragmatic effects. So it helps remove the excess fluid, helps reduce spasms like coughing spasms like in whooping cough. And diaphragmatic means it's good for the diaphragm or the chest, basically. That's all it means. Mouse ear is used internally in the treatment of asthma, bronchitis, coughs, and whooping cough, and externally in the treatment of wounds. No health hazards or side effects are known in conjunction with the proper administration of designated therapeutic dosages. So y'all, let's see, I got one more. Next week we'll get into plantain. I thought we might do it today, but it would take me another half hour, and we're already over about 45 minutes on this show. I like to keep them under an hour. I don't want to burden you with too much information. So really more common in my area is a native variety of the same plant. This is called Pilosella paniculata, commonly called Allegheny hawkweed or panicled hawkweed. As best I can tell, in early American herbal medicine, it was used interchangeably with the European hawkweed, which is Pilosella officinarum. Now, I'm going to give you this caveat. I have not been able to find any specific documentation about this specific variety. As best I can tell, people from, England and Scotland and Ireland and Germany, etc., that settled my region saw it and recognized it to be, thinking it to be the same plant as the hawkweed they knew from Europe and the British Isles, and just used it interchangeably. But I can't prove that. So I'm just going to give you that caveat. I think Allegheny hawkweed or Pilosella paniculata can be used identically to the officinarum, but I can't guarantee it. So experiment with it if you want to, be cautious with it, and decide for yourself. That's the best I can say. Until and unless someone actually does some controlled trials of using the two side by side and actually documents it, I can't say for sure, but in folk medicine it seems to have had the same uses. All right, y'all, so I am going to wrap it up here. Y'all have a great week. Try not to get too hot. I know, I got some wonderful creeks around my house that come from deep mountain springs that never get over 40 degrees. In the hottest summer, it can be 90 degrees, and I can get the creek, and it's like almost freezing. So I'm probably going to be in the creek a lot this week. Hopefully catch a few trout, too, if I get the chance. But y'all, do be cautious in this heat. Growing up, I was born in the mountains of North Carolina, but I spent the age of about 5 to 14, I guess, in the eastern part of the state, in the swamps, southeastern North Carolina, playing football and baseball. Always, every summer, we had days that were 110 degrees. I had a couple of heat strokes when I was a kid and in my teens. My great-great-grandfather died of a heat stroke. I mean, heat can be deadly. Don't take it lightly. I mean, even though I'm years recovered from having heat strokes, I can get a little dizzy, a little headache and sick if I get too hot, if the sun's shining on my head. That's why I usually wear a hat. A nice ventilated straw hat is very good to keep the sun off your head. Always remember to stay hydrated. Eat some food with some salt in it because you sweat out your salts, and that the lack of salt actually can give you more of those heat stroke and dehydration type symptoms than just being low on water. Stay cool. If you got air conditioning, use it. If you haven't, fans, shade. Avoid the heat of the day. This is one of those times where we might want to take some advice from like the people in Spain and different parts of the Mediterranean that will sleep in the day and work nights. Get good old-fashioned home remedies. A cabbage leaf under your hat will actually help cool you, especially if you dip those in ammonia. It helps kind of take the heat away from the body. We used to use those in baseball practice. Sounds crazy. May sound crazy to you now, but when I was a kid, we had pickle juice and we had cabbage leaves dipped in ammonia. Put it on our heads under our baseball caps. Cold water. Don't get too hot. Don't get too hot. You can die. You can die if you get too hot. Try to eat salads. Eat lightly. Put ice in your drinks if you can. And, just be sure to stay hydrated and cool as best you can. It looks like it's going to be a hot summer, clear through the duration. So I'm glad to be in the mountains, and I'm going to say a prayer for y'all that aren't, because it looks like it's going to be a tough summer. All right, y'all. Have a good one, and I will talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, for your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.